New details in our breaking news here on CNN. The slaying of a controversial abortion provider, George Tiller, in Kansas in broad daylight inside his own church. We are hearing from police at this hour, wrapping up a news conference just a short time ago. And at the scene, a church of all places, investigators are combing the lobby and talking to witnesses for clues. All we've seen of the accused murderer at this point is his getaway car as police tracked him on a Wichita interstate. That is a car right there in the center of your screen. The suspect is in custody, and right now the police of Kansas are wondering who is the brazen man that gunned down another man at a church service. It is hard to imagine sitting in church and being witness to a fatal shooting, but that's what happened to the worshipers at Wichita's Reformation Lutheran Church. We're told George Tiller was an usher and his wife was in the choir at the time of the shooting. The rest of the church members sprung from the pews.
It's heart-wrenching that something in our community could happen as evil as this in his church. You know, I mean, how does all that scar everybody in his church, plus our church, plus everybody in this community? You know, I just hope they catch him.
Well, Wichita police wrapped up a news conference, as we said, just a short time ago. We're just getting that into CNN. They aren't offering much details because they just don't know. It is still unfolding, but they believe the man in custody is the man who shot George Tiller. Listen.
We investigate this suspect to the nth degree, his history, his family, his associates, and we're just in the beginning stages of that. We never say that we're completely finished with that, so that will go into tonight. An ancillary thing that we'll be doing is there's a lot of information flowing on the internet right now between pro-life and pro-choice groups, and unfortunately we don't have the luxury as law enforcement to focus only on this case. We have to focus on a bigger picture, so we all have a whole other facet going. We'll be investigating anything that can come from that, and we're just asking people to let us run our course on this. We think we have the right person arrested. We're going to get him charged and hopefully handle this case in a professional manner.
There's much more to this news conference as we're still getting a lot of the information and a lot of the pieces from that news conference, and we're going to have a little bit later on for you just as soon as we get more from police, so stay tuned. You know, you may not recognize the name George Tiller, but he has been a central figure in one of the country's most emotional and long-running debates. And this morning's fatal shooting wasn't the first time that he was targeted or even shot, because Tiller survived an attempt on his life back in the 1990s. CNN's Josh Les has more on Tiller and his controversial practice. What have you learned, Josh?
Don, I'll tell you, he's a man who became known as a source of controversy because of his work, but he was also a family man, and tonight, both sides of the abortion divide are mourning his killing.
He was a major target of anti-abortion groups, a man who never wavered in the face of protests, trials, and violence. In 1993, Dr. George Tiller was shot and wounded in both arms. In 1986, his clinic was bombed. He continued to be one of the few doctors who performed late-term abortions. In 1999, he described the philosophy of his Wichita, Kansas clinic.
Third trimester abortion is simply a part of abortion. We have constructed our clinic and our philosophy along the lines that until you have natural survivalhood, the woman is the patient, not the fetus. Now, when does natural survivalhood come on? Good question. Sometime after the end of the second trimester.
Tiller faced repeated legal challenges. In March, he was acquitted on 19 counts of performing procedures unlawfully at his clinic. He also faced many peaceful demonstrations by people who found his work unconscionable.
I guess just devotion to God and what I believe in that gets me out here.
Groups on both sides of the abortion debate condemned his killing. Operation Rescue, which opposes abortion rights, said, "We denounce vigilantism and the cowardly act." NARAL Pro-Choice America said the murder will send a chill down the spines of the brave and courageous providers that serve women across this country. George Tiller, 67 years old, was known for his work, but was also a family man. In a statement, his family called the killing an unspeakable tragedy and said, "We ask that he be remembered as a good husband, father, and grandfather, and a dedicated servant on behalf of the rights of women everywhere."
And, you know, you saw him speaking in there, and there was something in there that really struck me earlier when he was talking about this idea of a fetus and viability and where he weighed in, and I think there's a good explanation of what his position was, where he stood on his website, drtiller.com, drtiller.com. You actually cannot access it right now, but a couple of hours ago you still could, and I saved a screen capture right here. Let's zoom in for just a second. It's small print. You're not going to be able to see all of it, but the basic idea, what he laid out on his website is this. He said that his clinic would perform elective abortions until the doctor at that particular place determined viability. So if the doctor at the clinic decided that that particular fetus was viable, then that clinic would not perform that abortion. But he did believe that it was possible to have a fetus that's not viable in the 3rd trimester. I know it sounds ultra-specific, but these are the kinds of things that became the touchstones of the debate, especially around him. But also, Don, as we pointed out there, talking about a man who was killed, had 4 kids, 10 grandchildren. It's obviously a tragedy for a family tonight as well, and we all keep that in mind.
And for a lot of the folks who were not only in the community, but in the church at the time that it happened. John Schlez, we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
You got it.
A spokesman for George Tiller's family issued a statement just a short time ago. Today, we mourn the loss of our husband, father, and grandfather, they say. Today's event is an unspeakable tragedy for all of us and for George's friends and patients. This is particularly heart-wrenching because George was shot down in his house of worship, a place of peace. You know, the anti-abortion group Operation Rescue had many confrontations with George Tiller through the years. Today, the group issued this statement. We are shocked at this morning's disturbing news that Mr. Tiller was gunned down. Operation Rescue has worked for years through peaceful, legal means and through the proper channels to see him brought to justice. We denounce vigilantism and the cowardly act that took place this morning. We know that George Tiller's slaying could have far-reaching implications, specifically the nation's high court. Supreme Court Justice nominee Sonia Sotomayor is set to meet with Senate Judiciary Committee members on Tuesday with the topic of abortion and landmark Roe v. Wade case being front and center. But some suggest today's killing in Wichita could create a pro-choice backlash. Anti-abortion activist Randall Terry, a former member and founder of Operation Rescue, who once picketed Tiller's clinic, calls Tiller a mass murderer. He also says, I am more concerned that the Obama administration will use Tiller's killing to intimidate pro-lifers into surrendering our most effective rhetoric and actions. Abortion is still murder, and we must still call abortion by its proper name.